Hello and welcome to the JCC's Wellness Webinar. My name is John Kieverkamp and I'm the Executive Director at the Shaw JCC of Akron. After a turbulent and crazy 2020, we are looking for 2021 as a year of wellness where we can all refocus and set our sights on new goals. We want to welcome our JCC members and everyone in the greater Akron community to help discover new ways to aid your emotional well-being. We have two speakers this evening, Kevin Karas and Dr. Renee Mudrey. First, Kevin will introduce and discuss the power of positive intention setting and affirmations. Kevin is a certified yoga instructor and has been teaching here at the JCC since 2016. Kevin is also the executive director of Elevate Akron, a nonprofit which has served to make yoga accessible to over 13,000 people in Akron. He conducts research on the contemplative practice of master teachers of yoga, meditation, holistic education, and adult learning. Kevin applies this research as the lead trainer for a holistic yoga school, which he hosts at his Intentional Living community, which was founded in 2016. Kevin will be followed by Dr. Renee Mudrey, who will discuss the role of an overactive mind, entitled The Wisdom of the Heart, The Road to Emotional Well-Being. Dr. Mudrey is a sought-after educational psychologist, author, associate professor, curriculum developer, and international master teacher and mentor. Combining her life experience with her expertise as a researcher and master teacher, Renee presents cutting-edge strategies aiding listeners to access the largely untapped potential for bringing mental and emotional energies into greater balance. Dr. Renee is also the mother of two, and she is the owner and founder of Transcendent Heart Life Coaching, LLC. Renee will be answering questions after her presentation. You may submit your questions in the chat room. Please note we are recording the webinar for future reference and have disabled the video and placed everyone on mute. We hope you enjoy the webinar and have a chance to reflect and be inspired. Be well. And now to Kevin. Take it away, my friend.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wellness Summit. My name is Kevin Karas, and I'm so excited to be here with you. Glad that you're taking this time for your health and wellness. The instrument you heard me playing here is called a hand pan, so I'll play that a little bit later, but I thought I'd give you a little musical introduction there to get your attention. So anyways, so a little bit about myself so you can kind of lock into a story. So I actually discovered the JCC maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. And I first was just going as a member. And one day I walked in there and the fitness director at the time was, near the desk at check-in. And, I was talking to her kind of about how much I love the JCC and I love being a part of this community. And, I was telling her a little bit about what I do as a yoga teacher and trainer. And she was like, oh, have you ever thought about teaching here? And one thing led to another. And, now we're, I guess, four or 5 years later now, and getting to teach classes every week at the JCC. And I love it. We're actually doing outdoor yoga now. It's insane. We're calling it Snoga, and we're doing it back in the pavilion. But yeah, so I really love getting to teach at the JCC, and that happen chance moment of talking to the fitness director, it was coincidence, yet at the same time it wasn't. Underneath that, there was a lot of work that I had done on myself and the sort of intentions I set for the life that I wanted to live. And so today, with this time we have together, this workshop, I really want to talk about the power of positive intention setting and affirmations, and that'll be our goal today. So I'll give you a little bit of an intro to me and sort of the work I do in the community. And then we'll go into a little bit of a lesson around that. And then we'll do a guided meditation and an activity for setting your own intentions. So just so you know a little bit more about me, really my mission in life is to really, grow the community of people who are seeking wellness in mind, body, and spirit. And one of the ways that I do this is running a nonprofit in Akron, Ohio called Elevate Akron, which we're so grateful for the JCC Shaw of Akron for sponsoring us. But the whole point of this nonprofit, since 2015, we've helped to provide mind-body resources to over 13,000 members of our local community. So really love doing that work. I also research these sort of contemplative practices of master teachers, and I apply this academic research to teaching a 200-hour holistic yoga training. So I teach yoga, I train teachers, I also create guided meditations with music. You'll get a little more music here in just a moment. I also run an intentional living community. So if you're looking for a place to live with like minds, I got the spot. So, and all this, a lot of times when I list out my things, I'm like, this is ridiculous. How do you do all these things, Kevin? And, a lot of it is through having a morning routine and an evening routine and just setting clear boundaries with myself during the day so that I can be well. And I recognize that for a lot of us right now, it's a wild time to be alive. It's always a wild time to be alive. There's always something going on. And I think that it is so key that we have practices that help us to recenter, to balance. It can be something as simple as just taking a moment in the morning, having a little exercise, whatever you do. But I'm going to try to encourage you by the end of this 15 minutes to feel inspired to adding positive intentions and affirmations into your life. So another bit about my background is I used to be a youth minister for Unity Church. And Unity is like all about the power of positive intentions. Thoughts become things. It's kind of linked into this law of attraction movement. And some people, whatever you believe around that, the fact is this. It's a psychological study around salience. Basically, for any of you who've bought a car, hopefully you've bought a car at some point in your life. It's pretty common in the modern world. Before you had that car, you maybe never noticed it, but as soon as you bought a red car, all of a sudden everyone has a red car. Or you bought a, whatever sort of model car you have, Honda, BMW, Audi, Ford, and then you notice it everywhere on the road. And basically, what the psychological studies have shown is this is a concept of salience. The more that we, bring something to our mind, the more easily we can see it in the world. So even going back to my story with the fitness director at the JCC and being able to get a job here teaching as a yoga instructor, that was from a lot of positive intention setting for the sort of thing I was looking for in my life. So whether you believe in the science, that the sort of thoughts you align yourself are what you're going to see in the world, or you align yourself with this more new age spirituality that your thoughts become reality, it's a fact. It's true. And, the other hang up people have is like, well, isn't just setting positive intentions kind of phony? Life's kind of hard. Like, Kevin, I don't want none of this BS. Sign me out of this webinar. And look, here's my thing I have to say to you. You can still have an affirmation that's something like, I am embracing the very real difficulties that I'm facing in my life, and I am using those challenges to help awaken me to greater self-awareness. I am finding the resources that I need to navigate these situations as best as I can. And I affirm that I'm doing my best with where I'm at. So you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to deny the challenges in life, but you do have to try to set positive intentions for the way that you're going to choose to see them. So In yoga, we talk about this as a concept. It's a Sanskrit word. We call it sankalpa. And sankalpa basically, while it doesn't translate exactly as intention setting, it stands more for the deep resolve of your heart. And when I think about yoga and meditation, all these practices, the goal of them is not to calm my mind or quiet my mind. People mistake the goal of meditation to quiet the mind. I know, like, what? Like, meditation's not about having no thoughts? Like, well, I thought that was the whole point. No, meditation is about meeting yourself where you're at and facing the reality and the truth of what's going on in that moment. Which, to me, if you can get out of the whole drama of the situation and really listen to your heart and what you need, that's where you discover the deep resolve of your heart. So I'm going to guide us in a brief meditation here. You don't have to be sitting any particular way. I'm sitting on the floor in my room. Now with the pandemic, you all get to see and peer into everyone's bedroom. This is my bedroom. But you don't have to sit any particular way. You can lay down, whatever you want to do. You can be in the chair. Try to not be browsing the internet casually here, though, and really focus yourself on this activity. So I'm going to close my eyes, and if you want to do so, I encourage you as well. And that invitation is an invitation to start to go within. And to start to feel your breath as you take a nice deep breath in. And to feel your breath releasing, noticing it's okay if there's tension or tightness. Just breathe in deeply, all the way. Breathe out all the way. You're doing great. A few more, deep breath all the way in. Come on, you can do it. Even deeper, and then let it all go. A few more, you're doing just great. Full breath all the way in. Hold it, and let it go. It's okay if you feel a little euphoria. One more nice deep breath. Just feel that euphoria as you're letting go of some of the tension of the day on the exhale. Let your shoulders relax. Let your face relax as you return to a normal breath. And just know that what a gift it is that you get to breathe, that you get to be alive. We get so caught up in the dramas of the day that we forget the simple fact that we are alive. You are alive. And so just for this moment, feel the gift of your life and maybe bring a smile to your face. It's okay if you don't feel like doing that. You don't have to do anything that's uncomfortable. But I encourage you to start to feel deeper now into the space of your heart. And if it helps to rest a hand on your chest or bring your hands together in sort of a prayerful position, you can do that. But being really honest and courageous with yourself. What is it that's on your heart right now? Let's take these next 5 breaths to listen to your heart. What's on your heart in this moment? And you already know. You don't have to look far. You know what's there. And based on what's on your heart, I want you to take a moment to grab your phone or open up a document on your computer or grab your notepad. And I want you to write out something related to what's on your heart that is a positive affirmation, a positive intention for the way that you want to look at that situation, that you want to navigate it. So go ahead and grab out, your phone, something, that works. Open up the computer. And just for this next minute, I want you to write something in an affirmation. I am, coming to greater clarity for what's on my heart. I am choosing to see this life situation in this way. But just take the next minute to write some empowered affirmations. And if you don't know what, just write whatever comes to mind. And maybe I am figuring out what to write. So while I do it, I'll get a little music for you going. You're gonna do just great. Go for it. So you're doing it, you're just typing or writing an affirmation. Look, I love this instrument. It's such a beautiful thing, the hand pan. Look, no matter how well you feel you did with this activity, I want you to know this, that there is a power in choosing your thoughts. There's a power in taking moments to pause, to breathe. There's a power and strength in knowing that you can choose the way that you will see your life circumstances, that you're not just living your life unconsciously, that you are setting goals and powerful affirmations that will help to set you in the direction you want to go in your life. So again, my encouragement to each of you, my name's Kevin Karas, and if you ever want to reach out and have some support around this, you can always look up our nonprofit, Elevate Akron. Our whole mission is helping to spread the good word of yoga and wellness, and one important thing to help to shape our minds, to empower us, and to live a life of purpose. Have a lovely day. And in yoga, we like to always close, seeing the light in each other, seeing the joy, seeing the positivity, the fullness for who you are. Namaste.
Good. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Renee Mudrey, and welcome. It's so nice to be able to follow Kevin and that wonderful presentation. And as he alluded to, we're going to be talking more about the role of the mind, why we struggle with our overactive minds, and more importantly, how we can go ahead and begin to lean into the wisdom of the heart and be able to find our wellness there. As we talked a little bit about in the beginning, that overall, it's so important to begin to start to look at life in regards to wellness instead of trying to figure out how to recover from illness. And this past year has certainly been a challenge for all of us. And as an educational psychologist and one who has devoted a large part of her career to working in the schools and with students and now training teachers to do this work, I will tell you it has definitely been a very challenging year, as I know you all know, as parents and grandparents and caregivers for many children. So we're going to be talking about the wisdom of the heart today. And I'm going to go ahead and just use our mouse here. Okay. So as I mentioned before, my name is Dr. Renee, and I have worked as a teacher, a professor, educational psychologist for 23, almost 24 years now. And when I really started to get in touch with this premise of wellness, more so than illness, really came after the battle in my own life when I was diagnosed with melanoma cancer. And I was diagnosed about 8 years ago. And I knew overall that I was interested in looking into all aspects of healing. I didn't want to just rely on traditional medicine. I certainly am a supporter of it, but also wanted to see if there were other things that I could do and could allow myself to really heal in all aspects of my being. And I realized that this was my calling. And so I started to study spiritual psychology and transcendental psychology and other forms of mind, body, spirit connection, and sort of took off from there and created my own business called Transcendent Heart. And I'll be talking about that in a little bit. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my journey with you there. And moving forward, I want to tell you that you are in the right place. I know many of you are here. And if you are really interested in experiencing greater joy in life, trying to create more peace and connection in your relationships, understanding how you can slow your overactive mind for sure through the heart wisdom, you're in the right place. And we'll also be talking a little bit today about how to increase your emotional intelligence and wisdom, and possibly, if we have time, if not, we'll talk about this in Q&A, how to develop and implement a daily practice for yourself and for others in your family. So just to get started here, I know that in looking at this picture, you all can recognize very much an overactive mind. We all experience this at some point or another in our lives. Our minds have become this supercomputer, as we all know, and one that really creates a lot of problems for a lot of us, whether it is experiencing anxiety or stress or worry, or just feeling like we can't get through the day and do everything, or we're constantly forgetting. Whatever is the case, we're going to be looking at this aspect today. But what I want us to look at and really think about is that, particularly within the pandemic, we have seen an increasing prevalence of anxiety, depression, and other emotional conditions. And over 40% of Americans will face anxiety within their lifetime. And I know for a fact that there are many things that we have yet to even see yet from this pandemic. We've yet to be able to even understand the long-term impact that this pandemic is going to have on adults and particularly children. I don't know about you, but as a parent, I know both of my children have had increasing levels of anxiety, wanting to go back to school, but school not feeling quite normal like it used to. And I know our fabulous teachers are doing the best that they can to try to make it as normal as possible. But, it's so hard when you can't play with your friends like you used to, or run up to them, or just hang out with them in the way that we used to. And it's really impacting children, and it's impacting us as adults, particularly trying to take care of all these things. Maybe you're homeschooling, maybe you're, a grandparent who just hasn't been able to see their family on a regular basis. All of these things are causing our minds to work overtime, aren't they? And we're going to see these numbers increase, I'm sure, very much in the next year or so. But one of the things that's really important as you think about your own journey with the role of the mind in your life. And one of the things that we have really been starting to shift is our changing perception of the role of the mind in healing. And we have relied so heavily on the mind as the supercomputer and the knower of all, right? And it's the first place that we go to when we have a problem, when we're struggling. We want to find the answer. We want to know why. And unfortunately, the pandemic, and fortunately, I should say, it's been a blessing as well, has caused us to really have to not rely on the mind so much, to let the mind rest, to bring some peace to the mind. So then what does that mean? What else do we rely on? Well, one of the things as we begin to restructure our understanding of healing right now is that the mind was never meant to lead. I want you guys to think about that for a minute. We have this supercomputer up here, and as one who particularly specializes in neuropsychology and teaches her future students and teachers about this and how to use it in education, we have relied so heavily on our minds. We believe everything it tells us. We allow every memory that comes from our memory banks to take reality in the present moment when all of it is a memory. and we allow it to come in and cause stress in our relationships and our everyday being. We feel that, well, we couldn't do this back then, so we're not going to be able to do it now. And the mind was never meant to lead. The mind was meant to be a part of a greater system. So what do I mean about that? Well, we have to think about this aspect that we call wisdom. I want you to take a moment. Those of us who are getting a little older, I just had my birthday on Tuesday, and I'm, getting up there. And people don't often can't guess my age, but I just turned 49. And I will tell you, it's been a beautiful journey, and I'm really proud of that, because I know with age comes wisdom. But how does wisdom form, and why is wisdom something we need to be able to start to pay greater attention to than just some of the other aspects of the mind in our healing? One of the things that we know is as we age, there are two types of intelligence that we have. We have what we call fluid intelligence and what we call crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence is all that stuff that helps you be a really great Jeopardy contestant, right? You can answer the questions quickly. You think about the question, you find the answer, you pull it out, you respond. As a student, it's what makes some of our students really fast in the way that they process information. But as we get older, unfortunately, fluid intelligence decreases. No matter what you want to try, you can slow it down, right, through a lot of different types of activities and chronic and constant learning. There's been studies done, particularly on certain ages of groups of individuals. There was a study done on sisters of the convent and, women who were over the age of 80 and how their fluid intelligence was still really strong. But that's because they continue to learn all throughout their lives, right? Particularly into their elder years. But our memory transits slow, and one of the things that we know is as the fluid intelligence decreases, the crystallized intelligence actually increases. This is the wisdom. There isn't much you have to do. Here's the good news. It just increases because of experience and life events and how you process through your journey. And each aspect of wisdom must be permitted to its own journey. So it's really important that, in order to be powerful, happy, and creative, we need to have this mastery of understanding what this wisdom of the mind and of the heart actually entails. So think about that, and it might be that as we get older, particularly women in perimenopause and postmenopausal, sometimes begin to start to see these hormonal influxes that begin to increase the rapid movement of the brain. You might be much more of a worrier now because of these hormonal shifts. Maybe you just recently had a baby. You'll also see that. This happens to men as well. Sometimes men, I think sometimes we don't spend enough time talking about the impact that just being around all of that has on you as well. And many men are coming out and talking more about postpartum impact on them as well, and how these things really impact their journey or their emotional journey. And so we spend a lot of time trying to train individuals into beginning to understand that there is this aspect of wisdom that's so important for us to tap into. So let's look a little bit more at that. So here's a quote I want you to think about the role of the heart. And as I mentioned, this brain has been the thing that we are taught from the time that we are really little, that it's great to be smart. It's great to know the answer. It's so important to study and to know what you know. But again, other aspects of our body are just as equally powerful and prevalent in our healing and our life spiritual connection. And the heart is one that we are learning more about, particularly knowing that it has its own intelligence system, which we'll talk about here in a second. But here's a quote. It says, "Follow your heart, but take your brain with you." We've spent so many years allowing our brains to lead this entire ship of our being, and we forget that it gets tired. And then it doesn't work the way we want it to, and we stress out. I can't remember. I feel really exhausted. And students have test anxiety or worry about things, and their grades go down. And this is really important because of things like heart math and other things that have been created now in the world that show us that it's the power of the heart resonance, that the heart actually has its own intelligence system. And I'm going to put up a slide here to talk a little bit about that. But it actually has 40,000 neurons that can sense, feel, learn, and remember. So think about how powerful that is. We're relying on our brain, which actually creates a lot more problems in our lives than we think about, has false memories, tells us stories because we want to know the answer now, right? We want to know why. And I know for our younger members, maybe if you've had relationships that have broken up, or even some of our older members, if we've had issues in our relationships, whether with family members or spouses or what have you, and we're trying to figure out why it didn't work out or what happened to us. And we just want to know, and our brain is already stressed from the hormones, from the stress. And it's not going to tell us the answer right away. But we are impatient, aren't we? We want to know why. So when we're struggling with other health issues or stress or things like that, it's best that we allow the mind to rest. And we start to rely more on this aspect of our being, which is our heart center, our heart chakra, because it has its own intelligence system. It has its own resonance system. And it's through these, this is what schools are now really getting big into with the heart math and other types of heart resonance curriculum, that we can actually show our students and our children that simply by tapping into their heart chakra, into their heart center, simply by evoking love, which isn't hard to do, we actually can send and emit that energy out to each other, improve relationships, improve our environment. And certainly in the political world that we have today, that certainly would go a really long way, wouldn't it? So the role of heart resonance and healing is powerful. And this is not, any of my original research. People have been doing this for years, but now thanks to, individuals out there who are running these neuropsychology labs, we're studying more and more and more about the beauty of the brain and heart connection. Right? So that was that quote. It said, follow your heart, but take your brain with you. They're not meant to compete with one another. And that's what I want you to ask yourself. If you're really struggling with stress, is it because you're having an over-reliance on your brain, or is it that you're not trusting your heart, right? And we're going to talk here a little bit about why we don't trust our heart. So we know that there is a synergistic effect, right? A synergistic element. The synergy simply means that the relationship, the connection of all is more important than the sum of the individual parts. So it's great if you're really intelligent, but if you can't connect on an emotional level or understand yourself from an emotionally intelligent perspective, you may still struggle. You can be a wonderful feeling person, but if you can't problem solve, right? There's all these issues. So we know that it's important that our minds and our hearts be treated equally as valuable in our healing process. So we've already talked about why we struggle with our minds. Again, our over-reliance on it to compute and to work quickly. We don't give it enough rest. I don't know about you guys, but in perimenopause, I'm lucky if I'm sleeping 3-4 hours at a time and then waking up and going back to bed and waking up, right? It's part of the journey. Young parents, I'm sure you're struggling to get sleep. Grandparents, we're starting to see a shift and a change in our biochemical energy. We might not be sleeping as much or earlier. So all of these things lead to us struggling with our minds. But we also don't trust our heart because our hearts don't give us the answer right away like our brain does, right? Our hearts make us wait. It allows us that moment to just kind of heal from whatever it is that we've been going through. And we have to be patient. That's the role of the heart wisdom, is helping us learn to not demand an answer right away, but to be able to wait for a sign, right? Wait for the guidance or whatever you believe in your faith or your higher self is really important. And so we want you, as you think about this role of wellness now, is to start to step away from the mind a little bit. If you notice that you're having panic and anxiety. I struggled for 33 years with panic disorder. That's why I became a psychologist. And allowing yourself to step back and develop other aspects of your mind, body, spirit connection so that the mind can actually work in conjunction with these other things and not lead the ship all the time. And the heart is so powerful and so capable of leading. And we don't want to have to reject one to support the other. So I always get people who always say, Dr. Renee, you know, if I become this person who leads from my heart, I'm going to make lots of sloppy mistakes. I'm going to fall in love with whomever, and I'm going to, you know, do all of these crazy things. And it's not true. It's not true. The heart, again, has a beautiful intelligence system. It knows its limitations, but it allows you the truth of connection, right? And we want our children to grow, to love and connect with other people, not to be creating boundaries in their mind about limitations simply because they don't understand someone. I'm big into personality and the impact of personality in education. And this is an area that I talk a lot about with teachers, that many of our kids who are profoundly introverted, right? They feel on such a deep level on the inside that they can't always communicate through written or verbal word right away. They take time. Why is that? Well, introverts actually are the ones who are best tapped into the role of the heart wisdom. They just don't know how to use it. And so if we spend this time, like our Chicago math and heart math programs that are starting to study heart resonance, we can actually help kids learn how to focus more on that and use that rhythm of their heart to tell them when they are reaching stress levels and when their optimal learning actually is happening, and also when it's best to communicate, when it's safe to communicate within their body. And we don't have to say that the mind is bad or the mind isn't working to get the heart to be able to do that. We just have to allow these aspects to work in a much better conjunction, a better pattern together. So I love this research. I really was so excited when I stepped into this a couple of years ago and really started to work on these aspects. And it has greatly reduced my stress level, my anxiety level. I'm still not sleeping greatly, but that's another issue called perimenopause that we all have to go through. But I do feel that as I've been able to share this with my own children, that they are reducing their reaction to stress, and they're starting to communicate better about their feelings and being open and not being so freaked out about stress, right? And the minute that I feel a heart palpitation, I don't have to hurry up and worry that that's something bad. That's just a communication system, a language system that I have yet to learn, is what I teach my kids. And when you learn the rhythm of your heart and the resonance of your heart and how to discern all of the symptoms that are happening in your body as different ways of your inner self communicating that we need to change, we need to do this differently, or we're not doing this and how we promised ourselves we'd do it. And it's so important to lean into that. All right. So I love this graphic here because, again, as we think about it, many of the times we kind of think these things are puppets and they're working against each other, but they need to be able to work in conjunction. The mind needs to be able to rest and the heart needs to be trusted. And when they both are given their right place in the mind-body-spirit connection, you'll be surprised that you're never going to have to worry. People always say to me, how do I know I'm making the right choice? And in my philosophy, and I really love Sadhguru and his work, and he said, there's really no right choice. There's just the next choice. So if you're trusting your heart and you're allowing your mind to be at peace with where you are, you just make that choice and you go with it until it shows that it's not for you anymore. Or maybe it will still be good for you for a long time, as long as you're not harming others and you're really thinking about the next best thing in your life. And these and your mind tells you, yep, let's go. So this is a better graphic when we're looking at thinking about what is the mind and the heart supposed to really be doing. They each have their own resonance. They each have their own intellectual properties. They each serve a really great purpose within our mind-body-spirit connection. But notice the overlap, because this is the most beautiful place that I ever found in my healing. It was the moment that I realized that when I stepped out of my mind and I moved into my heart, I truly found myself. I found my path. I found my purpose. Answers came more easily to me. I wasn't as stressed about what to do, as I just mentioned. I communicated better with people. I could feel, I was more empathic, even though I've always been profoundly empathic since I was very little. But I could feel what people needed before they needed to communicate that to me. these aren't psychic abilities or anything that are scary. These are natural human capabilities and the energy that we all have if we're just trained in how to develop it and how to trust it and work with it. But if we're consumed with worry and perfectionistic and compulsive in our tendencies and our behaviors, that can certainly exacerbate the mind to the point where the mind will eventually trick us, right? And you may have those symptoms where you feel really out of sorts and out of yourself, and you just can't focus or concentrate, or your mind is racing and all those kinds of things. And that just simply means you're not involving the heart enough in the process of your healing and of your life decisions. So it's a fun way of really learning how to do things differently in your life. It isn't easy. I know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it is. It does take a lot of practice. So what I'll end with here for us, and I'll allow you to kind of look into this on your own, because I really would like to save more time for questions, of course. But there is this really cool research out now called the Heart Virtues. And those of you who are academicians like I am, we want data and we want support and we want findings, because the spiritual, even though we're all very spiritual these days, a lot of people say, well, I don't know because I need to see the research. So there is research out there on what we're talking about. And Dr. Greg Braden and a lot of other people, are running full labs that are involved in this type of material. But there's an article on what we call the Heart Virtues. And if there's something you want to work with individuals and helping them understand, to replace negativity, to replace negative emotions, negative feelings, negative thoughts, something like, criticism, judgment, those kinds of things, right? We can begin to start to change that with these different heart virtues. And there are 6: acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, humility, valor, and understanding. And it's important, as Kevin sort of talked about, with the power of the positive affirmations and thinking about positive things and how isn't it amazing how they just kind of show up in your life and you're like, oh my God, did I do that? Yes, we all can do that. If I wake up in the day and I'm feeling very judgmental all of a sudden, the morning didn't quite go right and this and that. And, I wish that my son or my daughter would do something different. And, I get very judgmental of how they're processing through their day. I remember, and I step into one of these 6 heart virtues, like having compassion that they're young and children are frazzled and they feel a million emotions in the morning. And yet they have to adapt to our timeline, don't they, and get to school on time and feel okay. And it's horribly early in the morning on top of all of it. We expect our kids to go to school and feel wonderful when they get there. And so a little acceptance, a little forgiveness, some humility to remember what it was like to be their age. I spend a lot of time tapping into these and replacing my negative emotions, my negative thoughts, critical things, judgment, anything like that. And I say, which one can I replace this with today? And you'd be surprised. It's funny now when I'm driving in a car, as you guys know, being here in northeastern Ohio, weather isn't always great. People are in a hurry sometimes in their cars. I remember one time I knew I was doing the work and I was getting better when somebody cut me off up in downtown Cleveland on the freeway. And I said to myself, they must be having a really difficult time today. Instead of, what is he doing? Why did he do that? Now, everyone's not that kind to me, but I will tell you that just shows they have to work a little bit more here. And it really is powerful when you really tap into this space and learn to help to balance your mind and your heart more evenly, that it's not impossible to do this work. It just takes some patience again. The heart will not give you the answer right away. It will demand that you wait and you live and you understand and you learn your lesson. And when you can really look into that, the stress reduces and you feel better, right? You feel better. So the last slide that we have up here is just an image of those 6 heart virtues. And, I will make a link available here for you if you're interested in reading the research, or you can just look that up, as I know we're going to be saving this presentation. So our last quote here from Aristotle: educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And I think we understand, again, the mind, body, spirit connection and how important it is to balance all of that. So I will go ahead here on our last slide. Again, I want to thank you for listening to my presentation today. I want to thank the JCC for inviting me. I have been a part of the JCC community for over 11 years now, and love the facility, the Lippman School here, and everything about this wonderful place. And I just want to say thank you for letting me here today. So I think we're going to go into some questions and things like that. Hello.
Thank you, Dr. Mudrey. I'm going to start with some Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So I'll just start off with the first question. Would you recommend a whole food plant-based diet to improve mental health?
And I love this question because, as I mentioned earlier, having gone through a cancer diagnosis and wanting to really explore all of my options, I knew the importance that food was going to play. I knew the importance that stress management was going to play. And I definitely looked into a much more plant-based vegan diet. Now, I know that may not be something that all people can do. You certainly have to talk to your medical doctor. You have to talk to your endocrinologist. You have to talk to a lot of different practitioners. And I am not a medical doctor, so I will not say that. I'm just going to say what I know for myself is in doing that, I really reduced a lot of inflammation. I reduced a lot of those kinds of reactions to toxins in the environment, changed a lot of my cleaning products, changed, the things that we wash our clothes with, and, removed plastics as much as I could out of my home and things like that. And, it was amazing in the reaction my body then had, right? Just by reducing that stress and eating better and those kinds of things. So I definitely think it certainly plays a role for sure.
Absolutely. See here. What activities do you recommend doing at home to stay engaged besides just reading and puzzles?
Well, I think again with the pandemic, it's so hard, isn't it, that we have to really challenge ourselves to connect on so many levels. And I think this is just a wonderful way. I have like Zoom sessions with friends and a lot of things just to try to keep it together. But there are many things that I think are important, that you're always moving your body, because one of the things with mental health is the reason that our minds run amok is because our body hasn't moved enough. And I don't like to exercise. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I really don't. But I will tell you that on those days that I have moved my body more, I notice a huge difference in my ability to rest my head at night and things like that. So I think that, I love Qigong. Qigong is one of my favorite forms of movement meditation. So if you know Tai Chi, it's very similar, but it has a different premise to it. I think is important. But, the other thing to stay engaged is this is a time where if there's something you want to start, something you want to create, I feel like this is the time that we should be doing it. So, again, maybe it's time to go back to school and learn something new, do something different. I'm learning a new language. I'm learning Hindi currently. And it's hard. Oh my goodness. So this is the time maybe to try to wrap your head around something like that. And it'll help you stay engaged and connected, and your brain will begin to start to focus on something else. And those neural pathways will start to rewire, which will help some of that stress and some of those old habits start to go away too.
So this question kind of goes back to what you were saying. How can you maintain social connections during this time?
Yeah, I definitely think you have to kind of think about it outside of just physical presence, right? If we limit our minds to, well, I can't be connected unless I'm physically in the same room as someone, then we are certainly going to create more stress on ourselves. The mind doesn't know if you're physically present or not, right? It's our memory that we once were with this person, or I haven't seen my mom since July, and that's a really difficult thing. But I have to remind myself when I'm hearing my mom's voice on the phone that I am connected, and I begin to almost close my eyes and feel that space that I was talking about, that heart resonance, and I'm with her. And I go ahead and just allow my mind to kind of take me wherever it wants to. I'm a dreamer. I love to just close my eyes and visualize. I think that's kind of a beautiful way to stay connected with people too, if we can't be with them. But, kids can have little virtual, play dates and things like that. I have a friend whose daughter meets her friend every Friday night. They have like a little virtual sleepover. So they fall asleep on Zoom. It's so adorable. And they read books to each other and they sew and they knit. It's just the cutest thing ever. You can take cooking classes, right? I know some of the local places around here, we're beginning to offer some of those online, which is really fun. And you get to meet new friends, because I don't know how dating's working in this virtual world of pandemic. I'm glad I'm not having to worry about that. But, that might be something that you could do, right? So I would say all of those kinds of things.
Perfect. Are you using or familiar with the Inner Balance app from HeartMath?
Yeah, and I referenced HeartMath a little bit in my presentation. HeartMath is phenomenal. If you guys don't know about it, look it up. Many schools are starting to make it a part of their curriculum. You can also start to ask your administrators if it's something you want to bring. It is really, really wonderful, and it has simple tools and different apps that you can use on your phone, little things that students can wear to kind of measure their heart resonance and their heart frequency. And they begin to it's not just a heartbeat. It's about really understanding the rhythm of the heart and how we find our optimal learning levels within that, and also our best relaxation moments and things like that too. So definitely look into it. It's a really cool program. And I've had many students who've become certified instructors or practitioners with the program.
Very nice. So this is the last question I have here, but if anyone has questions before we wrap up, feel free to send them my way. So the last question here, unless anyone else has anything else, is how do I talk to my children about the pandemic without making them anxious?
Yeah, and I am one as a parent about being honest, emotionally honest with your children, but you don't have to give them all the details, right? But we do have to be emotionally honest. I think many kids, if we overly protect them, we don't teach them how to engage with their emotions, to understand them, right? When we look at the full 5 dimensions of emotional intelligence, they can say, oh, yes, I'm angry. Yes, I'm mad. So they can identify their emotion. But do they understand the differences in those emotions, or how multiple emotions can kind of come together and form a bigger conglomeration of emotions, right? And I think that we have to spend more time being really open and honest with them and saying, it's okay to be scared right now. It's okay to be frustrated about things. It's okay to not understand what's happening. But at the same time, so don't overly protect them there, but at the same time, we don't need to give them gory details about things in the world, right? Because that can be really scary for some of the overly sensitive but many kids are getting info, aren't they, out there anyway, in social media and phones. So it's kind of like, I always ask mine, what do you know? What do you want to know more about? What do you feel is heavy? What do you want to process in a different way? And then allow them this ability to begin to start to think positively about the future. We're still making plans for travel, and that's not something, even though I know it may not happen this year, we're still making plans so that we can look forward to something and still be positive. And we can still get out safely locally, right? Some of us. And so it's important that we're still being able to do those kinds of things as well. So.
Perfect. We actually had one more question come in. Mm-hmm. So the question is, what should we do when the heart acts under attachment towards actions or people, yet the mind puts up a red flag posed by the heart? How should we best concern in those times of inner conflict and dilemma?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say trust the heart over the mind in those moments, because what really, and my fiance taught me this was he's taught me many things, but I will say this is the greatest lesson that I remember in the early part of our relationship. He said, many times we as humans always walk into new situations with a whole host of what we were and what people were and what we knew and how we were, and we never just show up fully in the present moment, right? In this moment now. And so no one has half a shot with us because they're connected to everybody and everything that ever happened to us in the past. And so our mind is going to create that reel, right? That kind of recording is going to keep playing over and over and over again. And the heart is just going to say, let's go with this, or let's not do this right now. And the heart, I would trust the heart wisdom over the mind, which has a, perpetuation of attaching to the past. The heart always is in the present. The heart can't go past or forward. The mind sends that memory to the feeling of the heart, right? And it'll just say, just be cautious, take it slow, right? Something like that. So I would always err on the side of the heart, but even being a psychologist, I can say that now. And I think it's going to help you find your way in a more feeling-based thing. But as we said, don't think about them as competing with one another. Allow the mind to do what it needs to, and it's not going to be overtaxed to give you false information.
Well, thank you so much. I think that about wraps up our questions. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. This recording will be available on the Shaw JCC Facebook page and YouTube page if you'd like to go back and reference it. Any last thoughts, Dr. Mudrey, before we end tonight?
No, I was going to say thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. And again, thinking about this year as wellness versus illness. I know it's really scary as we're worried about all of these, strains and mutations and things like that. But again, one thing we know about the human spirit is we're all very resilient. And if we all work together and continue to stay as stress-free as we can, we're going to be able to make really good decisions and trust those decisions that we're going to find answers and solutions. We just have to be patient. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night. Thank you again.